You know, I already tried that once. Didn't work out. I just sort of, I don't know. I'm picturing him coming back like, what's his fucking, oh my God, the guy from The Matrix. No, the actor. Keanu Reeves, thank you. Keanu Reeves. I'm picturing him coming back as like more like the Keanu Reeves style, where he's just got like these fucking, like silver pistols. And I don't think he saves the good people. I just think he doesn't kill them. I just think he comes back, you know, with the white doves coming up with like one of those John Woo movies, and he's just jumping sideways in conference rooms at like fucking, like pharmaceutical companies, corporations with like war contracts, the CIA, fucking, who's the guys who poisoned our food supply? Who are those kooks that nobody knows what their names are, right? Monsanto, yeah, just comes back, he just fucking shoots all of them, narcissists, you know, just goes out. Like, wouldn't it be, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not that big. Maybe it's just the little people. Like, one of my favorite narcissists is the spiritual narcissist. The ones who give, like, self-help advice while it's still totally, like, about themselves. You know, I like them. And then I also like men who think they've figured out women, you know? They give you, like, you know, when you get into a relationship, you got to set the table. You got to, from day one, you got to let her know. It's just like... You're going to try to play the game of manipulation with a woman? You're going away from your strengths, dude. Like, why don't you take some stuff that really matters to you in a relationship and have an arm wrestle? Then I think you got a shot. But if you're going to try to outthink that, like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Like, I've actually found, believe it or not, I've actually found that women are not that complex, you know? But I'm smart enough, I would never tell them that. The same way they have to act like they think you're strong, you have to act like you just can't believe, oh, that's like, it's so complex. It isn't. Like, I've just found, like, if you're just nice to them, if you just be nice, it's really hard, unless you're married to a cunt. And then, I'm starting to understand, Austin. Some words are hard for you. But if I laugh at that, does that mean I'm anti-woman? No, there's cunts. Like, if you described a guy that's a rapist as a rapist, I wouldn't be like, it's just that word. No, if you're raping women, you're a rapist. You guys all pulling back. Like, I think we're seeing, like, the result of people growing up just on camera everywhere you fucking go. Like, I like how that's, like, people solve arguments now. Like, I see that, like, people on, like, Instagram or whatever, try to be off that thing, and, like, people get an argument in, like, a fucking parking lot, and it escalates, and then in the middle of it, they both start filming each other for this fucking news channel they don't own. Like, it's just like, what are you guys, like, what is the fucking thread here? And I don't understand why the other person just doesn't punch the other person and then just break their phone, and then it's over. Like, nobody ever thinks to do that. It's like they're holding a gun or something. They're just like, fuck, there goes my black belt in jiu-jitsu. You're filming me. Anyway, yeah, no, I've said a lot of stupid shit about women over the years. But none of that had to do with anything. It all had to do with my fucking intimacy issues. And I actually wanted to be married and all that type of stuff. But you're not allowed to say that as a guy, or else you're gay. In Austin, you can sit there in your fucking muttering silence right now. All of you moved here because you know that's true. I want to go somewhere that's more understanding. Do you guys... And then you move to Austin, and then what'd you see? Skyscraper banks, and you're like, it's all the same. I will tell you, when I was in Houston, Club Soda Kenny, everybody. The lovely Club Soda Kenny, legend in this business. I take him on tour. We're going overseas to Europe, and I asked him, you ever been over to Europe? He's like, no. I'm like, all right, so I thought he was going to be like how I was when I went, first time I went over to Europe, like I was performing on stage, like it was in English-speaking countries, and even then, like I was on my heels, and it was like affecting my shows, because it's weird, like the audience like senses it. Like one of the stupidest things they always say about stand-up is it's just you, man, and it isn't. It's you and the crowd, and there's this exchange of like energy where they're telling you speed up, slow down, we're bored, you went too far, I don't like that word, right? It's like, you guys are doing it, and I'm, we're connected, right? So I would be up there, and I would be like, first time I did this place, Leicester Square Theater, and I felt it, like I was on stage, and I was doing some bit about a squirrel or some shit. This is some of my better material. I'm gonna show you what American comedy's all about. I was doing this bit about squirrels or some shit, and like in my head, I started thinking like, oh fuck, do they have squirrels here? Are there squirrels here? Well, you're all laughing, do you know? I didn't know. Do they? I said, do they have squirrels? And you go, yeah. And I go, do they? And you go, I feel like they're everywhere. So there's some doubt in there. They would sense that, right? So that's how I was doing it. So I didn't have like the best sets I could have had. Turns out they do have squirrels. All right? Don't fucking act. Yeah, you guessed, all right? Yeah, you guessed. Okay, you did do that, all right? You didn't have to phone a friend. I'll give you that. They have like red ones, gingers over there. They have red squirrels, and then some stupid fucking asshole who didn't know how to talk to women back in the day had to bring American squirrels over there to be like, Roy, look what I did when I went out there. Will you fuck me now? That's what men do, right? And he introduced them, and they were bigger, like Americans are. We're bigger, we're fatter, and they beat the fuck out of that fucking English ginger squirrel, and they're going away. And now it's yet another petty reason for those cunts not to like us, which is fucking hilarious. It's really hilarious. Don't ever let an English person shit on America. Whenever they do that, like, Roy, what's wrong with your country? You started it. That's what's fucking wrong with it. You fucking assholes, don't walk away from it. You guys, this was your business. You set this thing. You set this whole fucking thing off. That's why there's black and white people now. Like, and all my non-white friends will always say, like, what's up with white people? You don't have any culture. You don't fucking do anything. It's like, well, the culture, any white culture that's nationalistic or whatever, not national, I don't know what the fucking word is. It's over in Europe. There it all is. French cuisine, Italian, all of that shit. It's all over there, the music and all. But you came here, England was running it, and you had to let go of all of that shit and act like those brown-toothed cunts, because then you could work your way up as a white person. Then we lost all our language, all of our shit, and now we're just sitting around waiting for Cinco de Mayo. Waiting for a cheesecake factory to open up. We're floating. We don't know what it is. But as a white person, when you go back to the motherland, when you go back to Europe, you feel this phantom limb. Like, why am I vibing? Why is this filling up my soul? It's because those brown-toothed cunts took it away. That's what they did. They did it everywhere. They fucked up India. India was like leading in everything. Everything from science to fucking drumming, the best drummers, yoga, all of this shit, it all came out of there. And they went there, fucked that whole country up, for fucking turmeric. Fucked that whole country up to this day. And they're like, Roy, look at all this mother, what the hell, fuck, because you were there. Because you were there and you fucked it all up. And this is what kills me. This is how fucking, I know we're super racist here. Oh, Jesus, not the throw pillow. I fucking hate these. It's like a fucking person you don't know is sitting there. They're not adding to the conversation. It's not comfortable. This is for a 4'11" woman with a bad back. Let me just stick these here. Oh my God. Oh yes. Oh, that's so better. Little feet, you gotta pull it closer to her. And everybody laughs at her. Everybody laughs at her because she's so fucking short, right? And then what does she do? She visits all of your deathbeds because she's only this tall and her heart doesn't have to work. It just has to go. And the blood goes all the way to your extremities, When was the last time you saw a 7', 90-year-old guy? You don't. They're fucking hard. It's fucking working. These little people. These little baby adults just living amongst us. They're gonna see the calendar turn to fucking 2100. Anyway, back to the English, right? So they fuck that whole country up and they take the spices. And what's fucking hilarious is you go to England today and the food is still fucking horrible. It's still horrible because they're so fucking racist. They couldn't get themselves to ask the Indian people how to use them. Right, I have a white brain. I'm not talking to you with your brown brain. And the only good food in England is Indian food. I swear to God, the rest of it. You want some bangers and mash? No, I don't. And I don't want beans on toast, you uncreative cunt. Beans on toast? What am I?
I found a spreadsheet tracking money she'd stolen. Then I found the key logger she installed to spy on me. Then her parents called to say they were cutting her out of their will. When I opened the door, she thought I was bluffing. She thought I'd break down and beg her to stay. She was wrong about everything, especially about me. My name is Paul Rivers. I'm 43 years old, and I've spent the last 19 years working as a chemical plant operator at Garrison Prochemical outside Baton Rouge. It's demanding work, rotating shifts, safety protocols, the constant smell of industrial solvents that clings to your clothes no matter how many times you wash them. But it pays well, and I've always believed in providing for my family. My wife Whitney and I have 2 boys, Oliver, who's 10, and Dylan, who's 8. Until that Tuesday, I thought we had a solid life. I thought I knew my wife. The house was quiet when I came through the door, which wasn't unusual for a Tuesday evening. Oliver and Dylan were supposed to be at soccer practice, and Whitney had mentioned something about meeting a client for her Etsy business. She'd been selling handmade leather goods online for 3 years now, wallets, belts, custom journal covers, decent side income, or so she told me. I never questioned it because I trusted her. I dropped my work bag by the door and noticed her laptop open on the kitchen counter. The screen was still lit, showing what looked like a spreadsheet. I wasn't snooping. I was genuinely just walking past when I saw the column headers that made me pause. Date, amount, CA, transfer, initials. The amounts weren't small. 1,500 here, 2,000 there, 3,500 a week ago. All marked with the initial CA. My stomach tightened. I knew our finances. We had joint accounts, a mortgage, car payments, the usual middle-class American setup. But these numbers, I'd never seen these transactions. I sat down and scrolled up. The spreadsheet went back almost 8 months. The total at the bottom made my breath catch. $47,300. Nearly 50 grand. Moving through accounts I didn't recognize to someone with the initial CA. That's when I heard the garage door opening. Whitney was home early. I closed the laptop carefully and stood up, walking to the fridge like I'd just been getting a drink. She came in through the mudroom, keys jingling, carrying 2 shopping bags from stores she usually claimed were too expensive. "Hey babe," she said brightly, not quite meeting my eyes. "Didn't expect you home yet." "Shift ended early," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "How was your day?" Whitney set the bags down and started pulling out items. New shoes, designer brand, a silk blouse, still wrapped in tissue paper. "Oh, just running errands. Picked up a few things." She waved her hand dismissively. "I've been meaning to treat myself. The Etsy shop's been doing really well lately. I nodded slowly. That's great. Business must be booming if you're clearing enough for shopping sprees. Something flickered across her face. Too quick to read. Well, it's been a good quarter. I've got a new supplier that's been helping me scale up production. His rates are better, so my margins improved. His rates? I repeated the supplier. What's his name? Whitney's smile tightened. Just a fraction.
Why?
Just curious, I said. You don't usually mention suppliers. Figured if he's helping the business this much, I should know who he is. Colin, she said after a beat too long. Colin Ashford. He's a leather distributor out of Houston. Very professional. Colin Ashford.
CA.
I took a drink of water to hide the fury rising in my chest. Sounds like a good connection to have. Yeah, Whitney said, already turning away. I'm going to take a shower. Long day. She left the kitchen and I heard her footsteps on the stairs. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the laptop, at the shopping bags, at the life I thought I knew. Then I walked over, opened the laptop again, and started taking photos of that spreadsheet with my phone because I'd learned something important in 19 years of working with dangerous chemicals. When you spot a leak, you don't ignore it. You document everything before it explodes in your face. I didn't confront Whitney that night. Instead, I did what I've learned to do in the chemical plant. When something's off, I gather more data. While she was in the shower, I went through her laptop more carefully, copying files to a thumb drive I kept in my work bag, bank statements, emails, photos she'd backed up to the cloud, everything. What I found over the next 2 hours made that $47,000 look like pocket change. Whitney hadn't just been working with Colin Ashford as a leather supplier. She'd been transferring money from our joint savings account. Small amounts at first, $300 here, $500 there. Always just under the $1,000 threshold that would trigger automatic bank notifications to my email. Over 11 months, she'd moved $72,000. My inheritance from my father's life insurance policy that I deposited 2 years ago specifically for the boys' college fund, but got worse. The emails between Whitney and Colin weren't professional. They were intimate, detailed, planning sessions about their future together. Whitney had been using the Etsy business as a front, meeting Colin 3 times a week at a rental property in Mandeville. She'd been helping him launder money from his actual business, which turned out to be a high-end car flipping operation with some questionable sourcing. I sat in the guest bedroom until midnight, reading every word, screenshotting every transaction. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. I'd worked with toxic chemicals long enough to know panic gets you killed. You follow procedure. You document everything. You protect yourself first. Whitney came looking for me around 12:30, wearing the silk nightgown she saved for special occasions. Paul, she called softly, opening the guest room door. Why are you in here? I looked up from my phone where I'd just finished emailing myself the last batch of evidence. Found something interesting on your laptop earlier? I said quietly. Her face didn't change, but I saw her fingers tighten on the door frame. What are you talking about? The spreadsheet, I replied, standing up slowly. The one tracking $47,000 going to someone with the initial CA. Want to tell me what that's about? Whitney's expression shifted through several emotions in quick succession. Surprise, calculation, then something like defiance. You went through my computer. You stole from our son's college fund. I said, voice still level. $72,000. Whitney over 11 months. Small transfers. You thought I wouldn't notice. She went pale.
I was going to pay it back.
With what money? I asked. The money you're making helping Colin Ashford wash dirty cash through fake Etsy sales. Whitney's mouth opened then closed. She took a step back into the hallway. You don't understand the situation. Then help me understand, I said, walking toward her. Help me understand how my wife of 19 years has been stealing from her own children to fund an affair with a criminal. Because that's what he is, right? I looked him up. Colin Ashford has 2 prior arrests for receiving stolen property. It's not like that, Whitney said, her voice rising slightly. He's trying to build something legitimate. He just needs capital to transition the business. I was helping him with our money, I said. Money meant for Oliver and Dylan's education. Money my father left because he wanted his grandsons to have opportunities one didn't. Whitney's face hardened. Your father's dead, Paul. And you've been married to your job for years. Colin makes me feel alive. He sees me as more than just someone's wife, someone's mother. The words hung in the air between us like poison gas. And something in me, some last vestige of hope I didn't know I was holding on to, finally released. I walked past her to the front door and opened it wide. The October night air rushed in, cool and damp from the bayou. "What are you doing?" Whitney asked. "Giving you what you want," I said calmly. "You're right. Colin sees you differently than I do. So go be with someone who sees you that way. Go be with someone who thinks stealing from children is acceptable as long as the feelings are real." She stared at me, and I could see it in her eyes. She'd expected yelling, tears, maybe even begging. She'd expected me to fight for her the way I always had. 20 seconds of silence passed. Then 30. "You're serious?" She finally whispered. "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." I replied, "Walk out that door, Whitney. I'm done." Her face transformed from shock to panic in an instant. She'd gambled on my love being unconditional, on me being too weak to let her go. She'd bet wrong. Whitney left that night, but she didn't go far. I watched from the upstairs window as her car sat in the driveway for 20 minutes. Her silhouette visible in the driver's seat, probably calling Colin, probably spinning some story about her unreasonable husband. Eventually she drove off, and I went back to work. Not emotional work, practical work. The kind that keeps you alive when everything else is falling apart. I call my brother Danny at midnight. He answered on the second ring. Voice rough with sleep. "Paul, what's wrong? I need you to come over tomorrow morning." I said early before the boys wake up, and bring your laptop, the one you use for IT work. Danny was quiet for a moment. He'd been in network security for 15 years. The guy companies called when they suspected employee theft or corporate espionage. "What did you find?" "Everything," I replied. "And I need to make sure I have copies of everything before Whitney realizes what I've got." He was in my house by 6 a.m. carrying a briefcase full of equipment I didn't understand, but trusted completely. We sat in my home office while the boys slept upstairs, and I showed him what I discovered. The bank transfers, the emails, the photos Whitney had been careless enough to back up to the cloud. Colin Ashford's business records that she'd saved her laptop, probably for tax fraud purposes. Danny's face got darker with each file I opened. "Jesus, Paul. This isn't just an affair. She's been helping him commit financial crimes." "I know," I said. "That's why I need you to help me preserve it properly. If this goes to court, I need everything documented in a way that's legally admissible." Danny pulled out a small external drive. "We'll create a forensic copy of her entire hard drive. Timestamp everything. Maintain chain of custody. You might want to consider filing a police report about the money she took from your account." "Not yet," I said. "First, I need to protect the boys. Make sure she can't take them anywhere while I'm building the case." That's when Danny said something that changed everything. "Have you checked your own computer? Your work email?" I frowned. Why would I need to? Because if she's paranoid enough to hide money and help her boyfriend launder cash, she's paranoid enough to monitor you, Danny replied. He pulled my work laptop over and started typing commands I didn't recognize. 5 minutes later, his face went pale. "What?" I asked. "She's had keylogger software on your machine for at least 8 months, Danny said quietly. "Professional grade stuff. The kind that captures every keystroke, every password, every website you visit. Paul, she's been reading your emails, your banking passwords, everything." The room tilted slightly. "My work emails, everything," Danny repeated. "If you've been communicating with anyone about this situation, with a lawyer, with me, with anyone, she knows about it." I sat back, mind racing. 8 months. That meant Whitney had been planning this longer than I'd thought. That meant every move I'd made since discovering the affair, she'd been watching. Every Google search about divorce attorneys, every text to Dee, every moment I thought I was gathering evidence in private, she'd known.
"Can you remove it?"
I asked. "I can, but here's the thing," Danny said. "If you remove it now, she'll know you found it. Better to leave it in place and feed her false information. Use it against her." I thought about that for a moment, about Whitney sitting somewhere, maybe at Colin's place, checking her monitoring software, thinking she still had the upper hand, thinking I was just a predictable chemical plant operator who wouldn't fight back.
No, I said.
Remove it, all of it, and then help me file criminal charges for unauthorized computer access. That's a federal crime, isn't it? Bain smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him all morning. It absolutely is. Identity theft, unauthorized access to protected computers, possible wire fraud, if she used her credentials for anything. You're talking serious charges, Paul. The kind that carry prison time. Good, I said. Because I'm not interested in playing games. I want her to understand that there are consequences for what she's done. Real consequences, not just hurt feelings and divorce papers. Denis started typing again, his fingers moving faster now. Let me document everything first. Screenshots, logs, the whole forensic package. Then we'll scrub your system clean, and you can decide how you want to proceed. As he worked, I went downstairs and made coffee, watching the sunrise through the kitchen window. Oliver and Dylan would be awake soon, asking where their mother was, wondering why Daddy looked so tired. I'd have to tell them something, some version of the truth that wouldn't destroy them completely. But first, I had to make sure Whitney couldn't destroy anything else. Oliver found me in the kitchen around 7:30, still wearing his dinosaur pajamas, hair sticking up in 3 directions.
Dad, where's Mom?
I turned from the coffee maker and knelt down to his level. She's staying somewhere else for a little while, buddy. We had a disagreement. Oliver's face, so much like mine at that age, creased with worry. Are you getting divorced? The question hit harder than I expected. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But whatever happens, it's not your fault or Dylan. This is between your mom and me. Oliver bit his lip, then glanced toward the stairs like he was checking to make sure we were alone. Dad, I need to show you something. But you can't tell Mom I told you. Something in his voice made my chest tighten. What is it? He ran upstairs and came back carrying an old iPad we'd given him 2 years ago when we upgraded to newer models. He opened it, navigated to the Photos app, and turned it toward me. The screen showed a picture of Whitney and Colin Ashford sitting in a restaurant booth, his arm around her shoulders, her head leaning against him. The date stamp said it was from 4 months ago. There's more, Oliver whispered. Dylan and we knew something was wrong. Mom kept lying about where she was going, so we started documenting stuff. He swiped through the photos. Whitney getting into an unfamiliar car in a grocery store parking lot. Colin's hand visible on the steering wheel. Another shot of them walking into a hotel taken from across the street with maximum zoom. A photo of Whitney's phone screen showing text messages photographed when she'd left it on the kitchen counter. Oliver, I said, my voice barely steady. How long have you been doing this?
Since July, he said.
I heard Mom on the phone one night saying stuff that sounded weird. She was telling someone she loved them, but you were right downstairs. So Dylan and I decided to figure out what was going on. We thought maybe we could fix it before you found out. I pulled my son into a hug, feeling him tremble slightly against my chest. 10 years old, and he'd been carrying this weight for months. You did the right thing telling me. But buddy, this wasn't your job to fix. This was never something you should have had to worry about. Are we going to be okay? Oliver asked, his voice muffled against my shoulder. Yes, I said firmly. We're going to be okay. I promise you that. Dylan appeared in the doorway, 8 years old, and looking like he'd been crying. Is Ollie telling you about the pictures? He is, I said, reaching out to pull Dylan into the hug, too. You boys are brave. Braver than you should have had to be. There's video, too, Dylan said quietly. On my old phone, the one that doesn't have service anymore. Mom didn't know I still used it to record stuff. I looked at both of them. These 2 kids who'd been trying to protect their family while their mother was tearing it apart. Can I see everything you have? They nodded and ran to get Dylan's old phone. What they showed me over the next hour was methodical, thorough, and absolutely heartbreaking. Voice recordings of Whitney talking to Colin on the phone, captured when she thought she was alone in the house. Photos of her coming home late with receipts from restaurants she'd claimed were Etsy business meetings. Even a short video of Whitney and Colin kissing in a parking lot, filmed from the back seat of our car when the boys had hidden there during one of her client meetings. My sons had built a better case against their mother than most private investigators could have managed, and they'd done it because they loved their family enough to try to save it. When Danny came downstairs and saw what the boys had collected, he just shook his head in amazement. Paul, with this evidence and what we pulled off Whitney's computer, you got an airtight case for the divorce, for custody, for the financial crimes, everything. I looked at Oliver and Dylan. Do you understand what this means? If we use this in court, everyone will know what your mom did. It might be hard. Oliver squared his shoulders, looking older than his years. We know, Dad, but we want to stay with you, and we don't want her to take all our college money for her boyfriend. Yeah, Dylan added. That money was from Grandpa. It's supposed to be for us. I felt something break and reform inside my chest. Pride, maybe, or the realization that my sons had more integrity than their mother ever would. Okay, I said. Then we do this right. We protect this family, and we make sure the truth comes out. 3 days after Whitney left, I was sitting in Dr. Patel's office at the Baton Rouge Occupational Health Clinic, getting news I'd been dreading for months. The persistent cough I'd been ignoring, the shortness of breath I'd attributed to stress, the chest tightness I'd blamed on the divorce situation. They all had a name now. Chemical pneumonitis, Dr. Patel said, pointing to the X-rays on a screen. Your lungs show significant inflammation consistent with chronic exposure to industrial solvents. How long have you been experiencing symptoms? 6 months, maybe longer, I admitted. I thought it was just allergies, Paul. This is serious, Dr. Patel said, his tone firm. Not life-threatening if we treat it aggressively, but you need to be off work for at least 3 months. No exposure to the chemicals that cause this. We're talking steroids, breathing treatments, regular monitoring, and honestly, you might need to consider a job change. Continued exposure could lead to permanent lung damage. I sat there processing that information. 3 months off work, possible career change, medical bills that would probably run into 6 figures, even with insurance, and in the middle of a divorce where my wife had already stolen $72,000 and was probably planning to demand alimony. Does Whitney know? Dr. Patel asked. We've been using the same family practice for years. He knew our situation. Not yet, I said. We're separated. She's been staying with her boyfriend. Dr. Patel's expression darkened. I'm sorry to hear that, but Paul, you need to tell her. This affects custody arrangements, financial planning, everything. I drove home thinking about timing. Whitney would find out about my diagnosis eventually. The insurance statements would show it. The question was whether I told her now, or let her discover it when she was already served with divorce papers. That decision was made for me when I got home and found Whitney's car in the driveway. She was sitting on the porch steps, and she stood up when I pulled in. We need to talk, she said, walking toward me. The boys need their mother. You can't just shut me out of their lives because you're angry. I'm not shutting you out because I'm angry, I said calmly, pulling the medical file from my passenger seat. I'm protecting them from someone who stole their college fund to finance an affair with a criminal. Whitney's face flushed. I told you I was going to pay that back. With what money? I asked. The money you were making helping Colin wash stolen car titles, or were you planning to steal more from our accounts? You don't understand. Whitney started, but I cut her off. No, you don't understand. I said I just came from the doctor. I have chemical pneumonitis, chronic lung inflammation from 19 years of working in that plant to provide for this family. I'm off work for 3 months minimum. I might have to change careers entirely. And you know what's really interesting timing? I tell you I'm sick and suddenly you're interested in reconciliation. Her face went pale. Paul, I didn't know. Of course you didn't. I said because you've been too busy planning your exit strategy with Colin to notice your husband was getting sicker. But here's what's going to happen now. You're going to receive divorce papers. You're going to be charged with computer fraud for that key logger you installed. And you're going to explain to a family court judge why you think you deserve custody of the boys you were willing to steal from. You're blaming me for your health problems. Whitney's voice rose. That's not fair. What's not fair? I replied, is that I'm facing medical bankruptcy while you're buying designer clothes with stolen money. What's not fair is that our sons documented your affair for months because they were trying to save this family while you were destroying it. What's not fair is that you thought you could monitor my computer, control my life, and I'd never find out. Whitney took a step back. The boys were spying on me. The boys were protecting themselves. I corrected because they're smarter than you gave them credit for. They knew something was wrong. They knew you were lying. So, they collected evidence, photos, videos, recordings, everything you did with Colin. They documented. The blood drained from Whitney's face completely. You're lying. Am I? I pulled out my phone and showed her one of Oliver's photos. Whitney and Colin in a restaurant, his arm around her, her head on his shoulder. They've got dozens of these timestamps, locations, everything. You thought you were so careful, but your own children were building a case against you. Whitney's hands started shaking. You can't use the boys against me in court. That's manipulative. I'm not using them. I said, they volunteer the evidence because they want to stay with me because they know who's been taking care of them and who's been sneaking around with her boyfriend. Now get off my property, Whitney. If you want to see the boys, you can arrange it through your lawyer once you hire one. She left without another word, and I watched her drive away before going inside to tell Oliver and Dylan that their mother knew about the evidence they collected. They took it better than I expected. Is she mad? Oliver asked. Probably, I said, honestly. But that's not your problem. You did the right thing. Are you really sick, Dad? Dylan asked, his voice small. I knelt down and pulled both boys into a hug. Yeah, buddy, but I'm going to be okay. The doctors caught it early. I just need to rest for a while and let my lungs heal. Because of your job, Oliver asked. Because I worked with dangerous chemicals for a long time, I explained. But that's on me, not on anyone else. And we're going to be fine. All three of us. Whitney hired a lawyer within 2 days. I knew because Rebecca Fontaine, the attorney I retained, called me with an update that made me smile for the first time in a week. Her lawyer contacted me this morning. Rebecca said, apparently, Whitney wants to negotiate a settlement before this goes to court. She's offering to sign away any claim to the house or your retirement accounts in exchange for joint custody and no criminal charges. No, I said immediately. I figured you'd say that, Rebecca replied. But let me be clear about what we're dealing with. Whitney's attorney knows about the evidence, the key logger, the stolen money, the affair. They know it's bad, but they're gambling that you won't want to put your sons through a custody battle. My sons are the ones who wanted to fight. I said they collected most of the evidence. They know what their mother did, and they want to stay with me. Then we need to talk about the school situation. Rebecca said, I got a call this morning from a principal at Riverside Elementary. Apparently, there's been an incident. My stomach dropped. What kind of incident? Whitney showed up at the school yesterday afternoon trying to check the boys out early. The office staff told her she needed your permission since you're listed as primary contact during the separation. She caused the scene, started yelling about her rights as a mother, accused the staff of keeping her from her children. The principal had threatened to call the police before she left. I closed my eyes. Did the boys see this? No, they were in class. But Paul, this is exactly the kind of behavior that helps her custody case. It shows instability, poor judgment, inability to follow proper channels. I've already requested a copy of the school's incident report. What else? I asked because I could hear there was more. The principal also mentioned that Whitney's been, and I'm quoting here, inappropriately familiar with male staff members. There was an incident last spring at a parent-teacher conference where she made advances toward Oliver's teacher. He reported it to the administration at the time, but they handled it quietly. My hands clenched around the phone. She hit on my son's teacher. According to the documentation, yes, the teacher is married. He made it clear he wasn't interested, and Whitney apparently laughed it off as a misunderstanding. But the principal says this is part of a pattern they've observed. Whitney volunteering for events where single fathers will be present, making comments that other parents found inappropriate, that sort of thing. I thought about all the school events I'd missed because of work. All the times Whitney had insisted she'd handle the parent involvement because I was too busy. Had she been using our son's school as a hunting ground? Rebecca, I want that principal's statement documented for the custody hearing. I said, if Whitney's been behaving inappropriately around the boys' school community, the judge needs to know. Already on it, Rebecca confirmed. I'm also working on getting statements from other parents. Apparently, word has gotten around about what happened, and several people have reached out saying they'd be willing to testify about Whitney's behavior that fast. I asked, small community, big scandal, Rebecca said. Your wife's affair isn't exactly a secret anymore. And the fact that she stole from your son's college fund? That's the kind of thing that turns neighbors into witnesses. People are angry on your behalf, Paul. They want to help. What about the criminal charges? I asked for the computer fraud. I've been in contact with the FBI's cybercrime division. Rebecca said they're interested, very interested, actually. Apparently, your wife Killager software is the kind that requires intent to install. It's not something you accidentally click on. And the fact that she monitored your accounts for 8 months, access your work emails, your banking passwords, all of that falls under federal computer fraud statutes. Will they prosecute? They're reviewing the evidence staying compiled. But between you and me, yes, I think they will. This is exactly the kind of case they like to pursue. Clear evidence, clear intent, clear damages. Your wife didn't just spy on you. She stole financial information. That's serious business. I felt something loosen in my chest. Good, because I want Whitney to understand that actions have consequences. Real consequences. She's starting to figure that out. Rebecca said her lawyer tried to use your medical diagnosis as leverage. Said, you'd need Whitney's help managing the boys while you're recovering. That family court would see it as unstable to deny them access to their mother during a health crisis. What did you tell them? Rebecca laughed. I told them that your sons have already stated they don't want to live with their mother, that you have family support from your brother, and that Whitney's boyfriend, Colin Ashford, has 2 felony convictions for receiving stolen property. I may have also mentioned that we'd be happy to discuss custody arrangements in court where all the evidence would become public record, and her lawyer hung up. Rebecca said, I expect they'll be back with a better offer soon. But Paul, don't settle for anything less than primary custody. You got the evidence. You got the boys on your side, and you've got a wife who committed federal crimes. This is your case to lose. I'm not settling, I said. Whitney made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. Whitney's parents showed up at my door on a Sunday afternoon, unannounced, and looking like they'd aged 10 years since I last seen them. Gerald and Mary and Dookham were old-school Louisiana Catholics, the kind who still went to Mass every morning and kept rosaries in every room of their house. They'd always been kind to me, if a bit reserved. But the looks on their faces now held something I'd never seen before.
Shame.
Paul, Gerald said stiffly. May we come in? I let them into the living room. Oliver and Dylan were at Deanne's house for the afternoon, which was probably for the best. Can I get you something to drink? This isn't a social call, Marian said, her voice tight. We need to talk about Whitney. I waited, sensing this was going to be significant. We know everything, Gerald said. The affair, the stolen money, what she did to those boys, making them feel like they had to spy on their own mother. He paused, his jaw working. We raised her better than that. We taught her right from wrong, and she chose wrong anyway. Marian pulled an envelope from her purse and sat on the coffee table that the copy of the document we filed with our attorney yesterday. We're changing our will. Winnie gets nothing. Everything we have, it goes to Oliver and Dylan with you as trustee until they're 25. I stared at the envelope. Mrs. Dookham, you don't have to do this. Yes, we do, she said firmly. Our daughter stole from her own children. She betrayed a good man who worked himself sick providing for this family. She dishonored her marriage vows and our family name. That money, it was supposed to be her inheritance. $800,000 we've been saving for 30 years, but she doesn't deserve it.
Your boys do.
Gerald leaned forward. Paul, there's something else. We're prepared to testify in the custody hearing to tell the judge that Whitney isn't fit to have primary custody, that she's been lying and manipulating since she was a teenager, that we've always known she had problems with honesty and fidelity. You testify against your own daughter? I asked quietly. We testify for our grandsons, Marianne corrected. Those boys deserve stability. They deserve a parent who puts them first. Whitney's never put anyone first but herself. Not even as a child. She looked down at her hands. I know how that sounds. A mother saying that about her daughter, but it's the truth. And we're tired of pretending otherwise. They stay for an hour sharing stories I'd never heard. How Whitney had lied about college grades, stolen money from Marianne's purse in high school, had an affair with a professor at LSU that nearly got him fired. A pattern of behaviors spanning decades that they covered up. Excused. Enabled.
Why?
Tell me now. I asked as they were leaving because those boys called us. Gerald said, called their grandmother crying, saying they were afraid the court would make them live with their mother. That they documented everything she did, but were scared it wouldn't matter. His voice broke slightly. No child should have to fear being taken from a good parent and given to a bad one. So, we're making sure that doesn't happen. After they left, I called Rebecca with the update. She was silent for a long moment. Paul, this changes everything. Parents testifying against their own child in a custody case. Judges pay attention to that. Combined with everything else, you're looking at full custody with minimal visitation rights for Whitney. What about the criminal charges? FBI accepted the case this morning. Rebecca said they're filing federal charges for computer fraud and identity theft. Whitney's looking at up to 5 years if convicted. 2 weeks later, D&E helped me execute what he called the most beautiful trap I've ever seen. We needed Whitney to show her true colors one more time on record where the custody evaluator could see exactly who she was. So, I posted some photos on social media. Me and a woman named Elena, one of the nurses from my pulmonologist office who'd agreed to help. Dinner at a nice restaurant, a walk by the lake, nothing inappropriate, just 2 people who look like they might be dating. Elena found it amusing. I'm helping you catch a cheater by pretending to be your girlfriend. This is the weirdest nursing shift I've ever worked. Whitney saw the post within an hour. I knew because my phone exploded with texts. 89 messages in 3 hours. Who is she? You're replacing me already. This is why you wanted the divorce. You had someone waiting. I'm going to make sure the judge knows you moved on while I was trying to save our marriage. Then came the voicemails. 12 of them, each more unhinged than the last. Crying, yelling, threatening, begging, all recorded, all time-stamped, all admissible in court. The custody evaluator, Dr. Raymond Keyes, listened to the recordings with an increasingly grim expression. Mr. Rivers, your wife sent 89 text messages in response to 3 social media photos. That's correct, I said, and she's claiming you're unstable. Dr. Keyes made a note. I'm seeing a pattern of obsessive behavior, lack of boundaries, and severe emotional dysregulation combined with the criminal charges, the financial theft, and the statements from her own parents. I'm recommending primary custody to you with supervised visitation only for Mrs. Rivers. Whitney's lawyer tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge took one look at Dr. Keyes' 47-page evaluation and made her ruling primary physical and legal custody to Mr. Rivers. Mrs. Rivers will have supervised visitation every other weekend pending resolution of the federal charges against her. She is prohibited from discussing the custody arrangement or Mr. Rivers' personal life with the children. Whitney tried to approach me outside the courthouse. I kept walking. Paul, please, you won't even talk to me. After everything we had, I stopped and turned to face her. Everything we had was built on lies. You monitor my computer. You stole from our sons. You betrayed every vow we made. There's nothing left to talk about. I made mistakes, she said desperately. But you're taking everything from me. My children, my inheritance, my freedom. No, I said calmly. You took everything from yourself. I'm just making sure you can't take anything more from me or the boys. Her face twisted with rage. You'll regret this. When Oliver and Dylan are older, they'll hate you for keeping them from their mother. They kept themselves from you. I replied, they documented your affair because they knew you were destroying this family. They chose me, Whitney, not because I manipulated them, but because you show them exactly who you are. I walked away, leaving her standing on the courthouse steps. Justice wasn't pretty, but it was done. The house had been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it in 1962 with his own hands. Every beam and bore a testament to his carpenter's craft. My father grew up here, and I'd brought Whitney home to this house as my bride 19 years ago. She'd always loved it, or so she claimed. Now she won a half of it in the divorce settlement. Paul, we need to talk about the property division, Rebecca said over the phone. Whitney's attorney is claiming that since you live in a house during your marriage, she's entitled to half its value. They're estimating $450,000. They want $225,000 as her share. That house was never marital property, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. My father deeded it to me before Whitney, and I even got engaged. She knew that. We sign a prenup. About that prenup, Rebecca said carefully. Whitney's claiming it's invalid because you didn't disclose the full value of the property at the time. She says you told her it was worth $200,000 when it was actually worth closer to $400,000. I pulled out the original documents from 2005. The property appraisal from then shows $185,000. It appreciated over 20 years, but that's not my fault. And Rebecca, every mortgage payment, every repair, every property tax bill, I paid those from my salary. Whitney never contributed a dime. I know, Rebecca said, and I can prove it. But her lawyer's going to argue that your salary was marital income, so her contributions were indirect. We need to shut this down fast before it becomes a bargaining chip. I thought about my grandfather's workshop still standing in the backyard. The tree my father planted when I was born. The marks on the kitchen doorframe tracking Oliver and Dylan's heights every birthday. This house isn't just property, Rebecca. It's my family's legacy. Whitney doesn't get to take it just because she was married to me when it appreciated in value. Then we fight. Rebecca said simply, I'll file a motion to exclude the house from marital assets based on the prenup and the deed transfer. We'll document every payment you made, every improvement you funded, and we'll remind the judge that Whitney stole $72,000 from your sons. She doesn't get a claim, she deserves half a house when she's a convicted felon. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. Whitney showed up with a new lawyer, her third since the divorce started. This one was younger, aggressive, the kind who thought volume and outrage could substitute for evidence. Your Honor, he said, standing dramatically. Mr. Rivers is attempting to deprive my client of her rightful share of the marital home where she raised 2 children and invested 19 years of her life. The prenuptial agreement is clearly unconscionable given the massive appreciation in property value that occurred during the marriage. Judge Patricia Grant, who'd been presiding over family court for 23 years, looked unimpressed. Counselor, the prenup explicitly states that the property at 847 Oakmont Drive remains separate property regardless of appreciation. Mrs. Rivers signed it willingly with her own attorney present. Unless you have evidence of fraud or coercion, the prenup stands. Whitney's lawyer tried to argue that my father's improvements to the house during our marriage constituted gifts to both of us. Rebecca shot that down with receipts, showing my father had paid me back for materials, that I'd done most of the labor myself, that Whitney had never lifted a hammer during any renovation. The judge's ruling was swift. The house is separate property. Mrs. Rivers has no claim to it. Mr. Rivers retains sole ownership. Next case. Whitney tried to approach me outside the courthouse, but I walked past her without a word. The house was safe. My son's inheritance was protected. That was all that mattered. 15 months after that Tuesday, when everything fell apart, I stood in my kitchen making breakfast for Oliver and Dylan, watching the morning sun stream through windows. I cleaned the day before. My lungs were healing slowly, but surely. The breathing treatments had worked, and my pulmonologist said I might be able to return to work in a different capacity. Maybe training or safety compliance, where chemical exposure wasn't a factor. Colin Ashford had been arrested 4 months ago. The IRS investigation into Whitney's Etsy business had led them to his car flipping operation, and they'd found enough evidence of fraud and money laundering to put him away for 6 years. Whitney, as his accomplice, had taken a plea deal, 3 years probation, restitution of the $72,000 she'd stolen, and mandatory counseling. She saw the boys once a month now, supervised visits at a family center where a social worker monitored every interaction. Oliver told me she mostly cried and talked about how unfair everything was. Dylan said he felt sorry for her, but didn't want to live with her. I didn't encourage those feelings, but I didn't discourage them either. The boys were old enough to form their own opinions. Deanie came over that morning to help me finish painting the guest bedroom. We've been slowly updating the house, not erasing Whitney's presence so much as replacing it with something that felt like ours. Mine and the boys. You doing okay? Deanie asked, watching me work. Yeah, I said, and realized I'm in it. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe literally and figuratively. The boys seem good too, Danny observed. Oliver made the honor roll again. Dylan's soccer team won their tournament. They're resilient, I said. Stronger than I gave them credit for. That afternoon, I sat down with Oliver and Dylan and told them about Elena. You remember those photos I posted a while back with that woman? They nodded, looking wary. That wasn't real. I said, honestly. She was a nurse from the hospital who agreed to help me prove a point to your mother. I wanted her to show her true colors for the court, and it worked. But I need you to know I wasn't actually dating her. I haven't been dating anyone. Oliver frowned. So you lied. I staged a situation. I corrected. There's a difference. I didn't lie about anything important. I just let your mother think something that revealed who she really was. Dylan thought about that like when we took pictures of her with Colin. Exactly like that, I said. Sometimes you have to document the truth to make people believe it. Are you going to date anyone? Oliver asked. For real? Maybe someday, I said. But right now my priority is you two. Making sure you're happy, healthy, and safe. Everything else can wait. That night, after the boys were asleep, I sat on the back porch with a cup of coffee, looking at the stars through the branches of my father's oak tree. I thought about the man I'd been when this started. The man who'd ignored warning signs because he wanted to believe his wife loved him. That man was gone, burned away by betrayal and rebuilt through necessity. The man I was now understood something that man hadn't. Love without integrity is just performance. Whitney had performed for 19 years and I'd applauded every act. But my sons had seen through it, had documented it, had chosen truth over comfortable lies. I didn't hate Whitney anymore. I didn't feel much of anything for her except a distant sadness for what might have been if she'd been someone else. But I was grateful in a strange way that it had ended when it did. Before I'd lost more years. Before the boys had learned that staying in a broken situation was normal. Before I'd forgotten what it felt like to wake up without the weight of someone else's deception pressing down on my chest. Oliver and Dylan deserved better than a father who accepted betrayal as the price of keeping peace. They deserved a father who showed them that self-respect wasn't optional, that protecting your family sometimes meant standing alone, that opening a door for someone to leave was more dignified than begging them to stay. And I'd given them that. Not perfectly maybe, but honestly, which was more than their mother had ever managed. The future stretched ahead, uncertain, but clean. No lies hiding in phones. No money disappearing from accounts. No pretending that everything was fine when it was falling apart. Just me and my boys building something real on the foundation of truth that was worth more than any marriage built on sand.